Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Bullpen. All right, in the Bullpen today, we have Andrew Ragusa, real estate investor, and he's going to talk about the eviction moratorium extension. He's making a case against it. Should be an interesting conversation. Andrew, thank you for being on Indisputable. How are you?
Dr. Richey, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm very grateful for the opportunity.
Absolutely. I don't want to presume what you believe or know about the eviction moratorium. So if you would, give us some of your context to your belief as it relates to the moratorium.
Sure, so I'm a big proponent of trying to get everyone back to normalcy. I think everybody wants to get back to society being somewhat the way it was prior to the coronavirus being around. And I think a big cog in that machine is going to be bringing the eviction moratorium to an end so that people can get back to the give and take relationship that is supposed to be taking place between landlord, tenant, and that entire scenario.
Okay, now I don't agree that the moratorium is the end all solution, because literally by definition and by policy design, it only kicks the can down the road. But I do think it's part of the solution. Now, would you agree that the moratorium utilized at least as a stopgap measure during the height of COVID-19 and what was happening to the American workforce, it was actually a good idea that could have been done better?
Absolutely. At the time the moratorium was put into place, it was the appropriate action to protect Americans, to protect people. It was absolutely necessary. My only argument here is that during this present time scenario where we have a labor shortage and people are saying that they can't find help, industry needs people to help with manufacturing, businesses are looking for more workers and they're offering more pay than before. In this scenario, it's time to start bringing back some accountability on both ends of that landlord-tenant relationship to move us forward. Because if there's jobs, you should be able to pay that mortgage.
Well, here's the ecosystem problem that you have right there. And I understand what you're proposing. But when you already existed in a system structure that did not pay the bills, meaning you had a job, but your job doesn't pay the mortgage, well, it becomes even more pronounced when now you're behind on your mortgage.
Absolutely.
And the moratorium simply says, let's accrue your mortgage responsibility. And all of a sudden you owe $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 at one time. And you were barely able to work that job and pay the bill that was in front of you. Now you've had a disruption of that. So what's the solution in that scenario, brother?
Well, I completely agree with you. The system was broken to begin with. And I think a big reason for that is because people in the millennial generation specifically have all been sold the big lie. And the lie is college would get you a good paying job, and it's just not the case. Because plenty of people have went to school, buried themselves in debt, and then came out missing skills, missing things that could make them marketable in the workforce. But there is a solution in place. The beautiful thing about America is that you can do anything. I know 20-year-olds who love Instagram so much, he started a marketing company. And now that guy makes $35,000 a month just managing other people's Instagram accounts. I know people who are able to create wealth for themselves simply because their mindset set them free. And that does not mean that it's only available for a few, it's available for those who believe they can.
Okay, so brother, let me tell you the problem in your analysis. You are assuming that your microcosm can explain the macrocosm. So let me give you some statistical data as it relates to college and technical training. Sure. I agree with you that everybody doesn't have to go to college. Okay, I support technical education. I work with the technical education programs. Right. But when you take away programs to give you access to those programs, you are working against the reality, the cause and effect dynamic associated with actual training and the workforce. Not necessarily a college degree, even though statistically, if you have a college degree, you make more money. That still is a real statistic. That's a reality every day. If you have technical training, you can make more money. But if you are saying, here's your solution, you have to get this specialized training. And at the same time, there's an effort to eliminate the funding so that you can have access to this specialized training or technical education, then does it not work against itself, brother, when we both know that is the solution for a better paid, more trained workforce?
Absolutely. I don't think we should get away with anything that enables people access to education. My only request here would be to get access to better quality data, because the reality is that if the education and the data that we're receiving in this generation was good, we wouldn't be buried in financial debt. We wouldn't be in the situation that we're in where you're not employable. I went to college and I got a bachelor's and master's degree, came out looking for a job, and no one would give it to me. And it was just at that time they were saying, oh, there's plenty of unemployment going on right now, and not a lot of people were hiring. But for some reason, other people were getting jobs and I wouldn't. I actually got my real estate license thinking I would do this temporarily, and then I saw what was possible, and I decided to take the bull by the horns and just keep going. And 6 years later, I find myself investing in real estate and helping other people do the same. I actually teach people how to become realtors. Yeah. So I really believe that with the right kind of mindset, you can set yourself free. And all I'm asking is that the data that people learn become better and more accountable.
I think you kind of contradicted your own argument. You said that you were unemployable with an undergraduate and graduate degree, but everybody around you, they were getting hired. Does that not then become a you problem rather than a statistical problem?
Yeah, it could have been. It could have been what I was studying. I studied healthcare administration, and because at the college campus they told me, the recruiter over the phone said if I got this degree, I would be employable as a basically like a department manager in a hospital. And that's what I was trying to do, was work my way up the business of hospitals. But it was just simply not true. I was told whatever it took to sign that paper, take on the debt and pay. So I went through the program and did what I was told. I put the trust in the people who were there to guide me. And now I ended up in a situation where I was buried in $60,000 of student loan debt and looking for another solution.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is that that's the system that I think caused the whole scenario where you're saying jobs are not paying people well. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it is interesting. I actually have published research about the cost of higher education. It costs too much damn money.
Absolutely.
To go to school. All right, period. And this is a challenge that continues to permeate in our American society. Other industrialized nations, they've solved it. We have not. We still have out of control college debt, and it's because of the price of college. Now, let's go to a reality in the data. Since you said let's get better data for things. If you actually extend the moratorium, okay, and I know they didn't do it federally, but if they would have, you actually save more taxpayer dollars than not. So let me give you a little bit of background to the data of homelessness, okay? Because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about people becoming homeless. That's what we're saying. This is from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. According to their assessment, it would cost $20 billion to truly end homelessness in America. That number is a big number, but let me put it in perspective. Americans spend $19 billion a year on unplugged appliances. We spend $35 billion a year on gym memberships. And we spend $718 billion on military alone. That was the assessment of 2019. Let me give you another data set. It currently costs about $35,000 to $37,000 for a homeless person to be in a local community or state. That's how much it costs on average for us to take care of that homeless person and what may happen due to the revolving door of incarceration, mental health, benefits that they take advantage of, et cetera, okay? You got about $35,000 to $37,000. You know how much it would cost to actually resolve it on the front end with actual housing at cost? $12,800. $12,800 in the front end would save the taxpayer $35,000 to $37,000 on the back end. So why have we never approached it as that commonsensical?
Well, Dr. Richey, I want to make my position really clear on the subject first too. I don't think millions of Americans need to be kicked out of their house. I think that would be a terrible solution. That's absolutely the wrong thing to do. There needs to be another solution put in place that is more, what's the word I'm looking for? It's better a present time solution to the scenario at case. We need both the bank, the landlord, and the tenant to all be a little bit compassionate with each other and look for some sort of common ground. Like we both know right now that the banks are making a killing on these mortgages that they write, and they make millions and billions and billions of dollars. So if they gave a little leniency to that landlord, and that landlord can pass that leniency down to the tenant, then that would be a great thing for society. I don't think making millions and millions of people homeless is the right thing to do. It's clearly wrong. And even from a business perspective, millions and millions of vacancies would crash a market. So it's not a smart solution either way. But there has to be put back into place a system of give and take and a system of exchange, because that is what got us to where we are now. It was always the even exchange and the relationship of win-win. You pay rent, we provide housing, maintain it, keep it clean, right?
Yeah.
Yes, there were flaws in the system, but you can only try to make it better and progress forward, right?
You got to address those flaws. So you can't get to a real solution without addressing the underlying issues that led to it in the first place. What we're seeing are the disparities, but the disparities were present and they coexisted well before the housing crisis, COVID-19, anything else. Let me read another stat to you, brother, because I agree with you on the tenant side, right? Because this is bad for tenants too. Evictions are bad for tenants and it's bad for landlords.
Yes.
So here's what happens if you provide no safety net for what's happening right now in America with the suspension or not allowing the moratorium to continue and not truly providing a solution or remedy for the whole problem. When you accrue filing fees, lawyers' cost, lost rent, which are the vacancies you just talked about, and damages to the unit, studies show that these eviction-related costs will average 4.2 million bucks in the short term. Nationwide, 2.6 to 4.6 billion in the long term, and 50 billion, brother, after 1 year. 50 billion. That's just on the landlords, right? Yeah. So why is it a disconnect between the landlord and the tenant when it comes to the policy that must move it forward? You have to agree with me, brother, saying that the moratorium needs to end and just saying nothing else. That's not helping landlords. That's hurting them based on the numbers.
That would not be a smart solution whatsoever. I think the moratorium needs to end, but there has to be some other regulation enacted that helps ease the adjustment back. But it was that accountability in the exchange process on both ends that created a winning relationship to begin with. There should be some sort of safety net in place, maybe some sort of subsidies or tax breaks or anything that would help recover lost money and ease the landlord-tenant scenario back into a normal state. Cutting it off completely and saying, okay, now you're gonna get kicked out of your house would do incredible damage to everyone involved. So I don't think that would be a smart solution.
Yeah, so the Urban Institute, they have numbers as well. If you were to evict 4.2 million adults right now, if you were to do that, the cost to the tenants would be $1,200 per unit, which is about 5 billion. Lost earnings would go to $1,500 per unit, which is 6.6 billion. And the total cost to tenants across the country would be $2,700 per unit, which is 11.6 billion. The cost to the landlords based on the Urban Institute study, if you were to evict 4.2 million adults, the cost to serve these evictions, 2.6 to 4.6 billion, just to serve the eviction, all right? The cost of lost rent and repairs up to 50 billion, and the total cost for landlords per unit is between 2,542 to 12,998, which means on the high end of that, you're looking at over $11 billion in actual revenue loss.
Yeah.
So these numbers, for some reason, are hidden from a lot of the policy debate as it relates to what solution should be on the table. And this is a game that a lot of people play in partisan politics, especially. Agreed. They would try to frame this, brother, as a landlord versus tenant discussion. Well, the truth is, it is a landlord and tenant discussion.
Absolutely, it's a society discussion, right? We all need to progress forward with a solution that makes sense for everyone involved. You can't have a one-sided solution that will destroy a lot for a lot of people. And I'm a big proponent of finding common ground. So you're not gonna find me arguing one way and not the other.
Brother, I appreciate your time on Indisputable. You have an opportunity to come back, man. And listen, brother, continue doing what you're doing. I know you and I may disagree on some finer points, but we do agree on some major ones too.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm very grateful.
Absolutely.